Well, you've read it many times on the comments section of news websites or social media. Whenever somebody defends the establishment line on any issue, they're immediately labelled a government shill or a paid for troll. It sounds pretty crude, but it actually turns out that that is exactly what's happening. According to a report in the Wall Street Journal, the Turkish government has hired a 6,000 member team devoted to shaping public opinion through social media. And the quote from the ruling Justice and Development Party official says that their job is to counter disinformation about the party. We correct them with valid information, always using positive language. And what most people don't realise is that governments and corporations all over the world have, for at least 10 years, used paid for shills, hired trolls to defend their official narrative, to defend the establishment line. This is far from a conspiracy theory. Here's an article from Canadian CTV News back in 2000. As misinformation, not only on social media. The Israeli government paying students to post pro-Israeli propaganda on social media websites. They get paid $2,000 to post pro-Israel messages for 5 hours a week. So Turkey's doing it, Canada's doing it, Israel's doing it. Here's an article from 2011 which admitted that since 2005 the communist Chinese government has a growing army of paid internet commentators. And they actually call it an important battlefield of ideology. So Beijing has also hired numerous individuals as paid government shills to spout pro-Beijing, pro-communist, pro-Chinese propaganda on the internet. And again, look at that quote. An important battlefield of ideology. So you might think that leaving a comment on a news article is kind of fruitless. Engaging in a debate with a troll is kind of fruitless. But when you realise that governments spend so much money and time on hiring these people to do that very thing as part of, quote, an important battlefield of ideology, then you begin to realise just how important that really is in shaping public opinion. And corporations do it too in terms of product reviews. Here's Microsoft having to deny that they hired contractors to post positive comments about the Xbox One. Of course, there have been numerous reports about Monsanto hiring paid propagandists to go into social media and news website comments to give their side of the story. Of course, they also have an army of lobbyists and they pay millions and millions of dollars for Americans not to know that GMO is in their food. So you have corporations doing it, you have governments doing it, and yes, the US government is doing it too. You remember back in July, Infowars.com had this story about the Department of Defense, the Pentagon, bemoaning the fact that they couldn't get out ahead of bad news stories and that the Drudge Report often trumped them to that kind of thing. So now they're trying to get out ahead of bad news and come to terms with telling bad stories as well as the good. So they're bemoaning the fact that independent media is shaping public opinion in terms of Pentagon policies. And of course, on top of this, it came out back in 2011 that the Air Force and the US Army had hired a company, a data security firm, HB Gary, to develop this multiple persona management, which enabled one individual to manage multiple social media accounts from the same platform. And as this report out of Computer World documented, this was all about creating multiple fake social media profiles to manipulate and sway public opinion on controversial issues by promoting propaganda. So the US Air Force is doing it, the Pentagon's doing it, and it's all part of this redirection, which was previously, and I believe still is, actually against the law, but they're doing it anyway. And that is to deliberately propagandize towards a domestic and American audience. Of course, the US government's been doing that abroad for decades and decades, but only recently have they basically admitted that they're doing it domestically. And that centers around online news website comments and social media. US Air Force, Pentagon is now hiring people who manage multiple different fake accounts through which they leave comments on Facebook, Twitter, and news websites spouting pro-establishment, pro-war, pro-military industrial complex opinions in an attempt to create a fake grassroots perception that sways public opinion. So next time you're on Facebook or Twitter or on the comment section of a news website and you see people leaving bizarre pro-establishment positions that don't seem to jive with the majority of the feedback, just remember that this is not a conspiracy. It's a real fact that corporations and numerous governments around the world, including the Canadian, Israeli, and American governments, pay armies of shills, they pay trolls to leave pro-establishment comments on social media and news website comment sections. It's not a conspiracy theory, it's all an admitted fact. So watch out for it in the future. And again, it's a battlefield of ideas. The governments who pay people to do this admit that fact. So that's why it is important for you to counter their misinformation and continue to speak the truth, to sway public opinion towards reality. That's what they don't want to see. That's why they pay armies of people to sway it the other way to justify their own corruption. This is Paul Joseph Watson reporting for Infowars.com.